What is up? We have another power rankings video. I got invited to do two of them, so I'm back here today for the Kanto division. And I couldn't do this by myself. I had to get somebody, and this somebody is the owner of the NPBA server, which I love and adore so much. It's Jode, everybody.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Jode. I'm the owner of the NPBA, and I'm excited to start this power ranking video with JSauce here.
Yeah, make sure to like, comment, subscribe because I need help with the algorithm. I'd appreciate it. And I just want to thank everyone watching for supporting the last couple of vids. I've been getting great feedback, just been getting a lot of good support, and it's always nice to appreciate those who help me build me up. And let's go ahead and, if you watched the last Power Rankings video, you'll already be familiar with these. But what are these PRs based on, Jode?
Yeah, so we've got a couple criteria here. I know you made these. I might throw in a few extra of my own, but definitely some of the big ones are going to be your speed tiers, your defense and offensive cores, considering how they work together, as well as your type coverage, your weaknesses, your resistances, general synergies, like maybe the moves and abilities that work together. Of course, hazards and momentum are very important. General support, think stuff like maybe Wish, Thunder Wave, Aromatherapy, Whirlwind, Taunt, stuff like that. And then we are actually in a Terra format with 2 Terra Captains, both in the lower tiers. So we're going to be evaluating the power of your Terra Captains, as well as just kind of our general impressions, the power of the team. I might throw in that I take into consideration a pretty good amount of your setup potential, kind of your sweeping potential. And I also give a small consideration to your priority, which can kind of make up for poor speed tiers sometimes. So I think that's about what we're considering for most of these teams. Is there anything you want to add? Otherwise, you can take it away, JSauce.
Not really, but there's just some things I don't value as much on here where I value more. Also, the differentiation between cleaners/sweepers and breakers is something nice, because you could have all the sweepers in the world, but if you don't have a breaker, then sometimes it's hard to just completely win a game. I think that's really it. Priority does allow you to stop or to revenge sash mods and endure sets, which can be very good in matchups. But yeah, other than that, let's just move on to our number 16. So Jode and I ranked these separately, took the averages, and you'll see both of our rankings on the screen and at the end. So number 16 is the Leicester Lycan Rocks by Coach Atesian. Jode and I have pretty similar ranking. I'll just be straight up. It doesn't scare me. The JSauce vibe test is a real thing, and I just not a big fan of a lot of these mods. You look at the bottom left is overall type weaknesses on the team and what you have. Bottom middle is speed. Bottom right is support moves and just other good moves, just for future reference. But I don't know. I think Gengar really being your fastest mon, because Deoxys speed half the time is just a lead. I think it's a little scary because there's a lot of mons above 110 that hit hard, and a lot of the mons on this team, especially until you get to Great Tusk, are offensive. They don't like to be taking hits. What are your thoughts on it, Jode?
Yeah, I think I'll stray a little away from what you said with a couple of those points. Now, I didn't have this at 16. I actually had it at 13. And I'll start this out by saying I don't think any of these teams are bad. Like, even what I have as a 16th ranked team would probably still be like 8 or 6 or something in like any of the other divisions. Mm-hmm. It's just that literally every one of these teams was good to me. This was definitely on the lower end for me. I think I fully agree with you on the vibe check. My initial impression was like the offensive threats, primarily being like Zarude and Gengar. They're good, but they're not like the pinnacle of offense. They're just like pretty good. And of course, Great Tusk is Lando Therian Part 2. It can be offensive, but some weeks it'll be more on the defensive side. But I do think Deoxys has a bit more offensive capability than you might think. Psycho Boost is legal, and it's got really good coverage and setup potential. It's going to be a lead sometimes, but when you have Great Tusk and you have Empoleon to set hazards as well, even Weezing can set Toxic Spikes and do like a weird like explosion lead if you want. I don't think Deoxys is going to be forced to lead roll every time, so you're going to get a little more value out of the speed. Then on defense, you still have Empoleon, which is great. It has Roost. I think it has Roost, Flip Turn, and Defog. I think it has all three now, because it has its new like DLC moves. And then you have Mega Altaria as well, which is a nice setup sweeper, as well as a potential Bulkymon, just with that like really high defense and special defense, and a very powerful return, because again it's Nat Deck, so we get return here. So those things do bring it up a bit for me. I think you've got nice hazard setting. You've got 3 really good hazard removers. It's just some of the offensive potential is a little on the lower end for me. It's nothing is like some crazy breaker besides like Arcanine, I would say. Looking at Terra, I guess we should probably talk about Terra Captain. I don't like Lunatone, I don't think it's ever coming, but Heliolisk is pretty good. It gets Terra Blast, so it's kind of just like another sort of Jolteon type Pokemon. Pretty good damage, decent speed. It's nothing crazy though.
Yeah, I do want to also add on, just kind of for future reference, what Joe's talked about earlier. None of the teams are bad, and I've definitely seen worse. This is Kanto. This is the tippy top. This is peak NPBA, so naturally everyone's drafts are going to be good. There's going to be very little mistakes. I do think you bring a good point with Arcanine, with Great Tusk, with Dragonite, Mega Altaria. The actual speed tiers of this team can be a little deceiving, but at the same time, you just kind of bring a Choice Scarf Mon above Arcanine, and then you're able to revenge stuff even if it's at +1. I will say, Heliolisk is a good Terra Captain. I think Lunatone might come once, but I don't think it's going to do that much.
Yeah, I think I agree with pretty much all of that. I don't want to dwell too much on one team. You should get moving, but yeah, the speed tier thing is a little awkward. You can get like a base 130 that gets to run Adamant or Modest on you, but I don't think it's a horrible thing. But yeah, let's move on to the next team.
I'm not sure what the board is looking like, but I would have loved to see a Kilowattrel there instead of a Heliolisk.
I actually think Kilowattrel was, because I helped plan this team a bit. I think Kilowattrel was available, and I was a little more in favor of it than the coach who drafted. But
okay,
Heliolisk is pretty good too.
Yeah, it is pretty good. Next up, we have, dare I say, the NPBA GOAT. Is it 5 rings, Joe? You're a little bit more familiar with the game.
It's 4, so not quite there, but probably going to be 5 this season, despite this low ranking.
Well, 4 is still half of the NPBA season, so you take that if you're FAC.
Yeah, and also FAC wasn't even there for the first 2, so it's 4 out of 6 so far.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so I don't know. I guess I could start with this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed with this team, and we have to be nitpicking with these Kanto teams because, like, realistically, this is not a bad team, is the speed tiers are really weird. You got 6 Pokemon in the range of 95 to 105, and then you have 1 Cinderace at 119, which is good, but having 119 as your fastest is really, like, suboptimal. I haven't checked. It might be the slowest or second slowest top mon on a team, if that makes sense. So you're going to end up having something faster than you on just about every team. And, Urshifu did get Trailblaze, so that does help a bit there. And you do have the Yanmega, so I guess Yanmega is always going to be speed boosting, and I think there's a good Terra Captain. But this team sort of didn't come together for me. I don't think you have really a solid defensive core. Of course, Zapdos, like Registeel, is good, but it's not as varied as I would like it to be. And your hazard removal here, despite having 3 Pokemon that remove hazards, you really only have 1 that I would consider to actually be good at that. That being Zapdos, like Cryogonal and Yanmega are not. Like Cryogonal's not a good Pokemon, and Yanmega does not want to run Debug. So, with all the pivoting you have from Palafin, Urshifu, Zapdos itself, Cinderace, all getting like huge turn into flip turn from Palafin, you're gonna have to run Boots a little more than you'd like, and I'm not a big fan of that. So, yeah, if you want to take the rest.
I'm using Cinderace in League right now, and I think having Court Change is huge, but you don't want to run it every week. You want to have a better secondary remover than Cryo. I love the momentum on this team, and I'll just say it, I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I think the better you are, the less you need momentum. And,
Yes.
I'm like, okay, but I really value momentum, so that kind of took a factor in some of my rankings. Other than that, I love the first 6. I'm a huge Paragon Mega fan. I just wish there's a little better removal, and then I don't like any of the last 4. I mean, Porygon's never going to come. It was kind of just like your 1-point pick. But I don't like Darksponge. Sure, it's a Wish Pasture, but like, what are you Wish Passing into? Nidoqueen? Zapdos? And I just don't think it's that good of a mon otherwise. Registeel is fine, I just don't personally like it. Obviously, you got your Zapdos as a ground and fighting resist. And then Cryo, I'm indifferent on. I mean, it's fine. It is worth mentioning that you do have one knockoff user, which is that Cryo. And the hazard game isn't the greatest on either side, so that did kind of factor into a team when you are pivoting so much. And other than that, I mean, no Ghost or no Dragon kind of spooked me. No Ghost is fine. It's just there for hazard removal, which you don't have that many, or to block spin, which you don't really have many hazards, so it's fine. Dragon, I've noticed a lot of teams in this draft don't have Dragon types, and I think that's absolutely fine. Yeah, I mean, it's not the worst, it's not the best, it's just kind of there. I do think you're going to be running Scarf and Boots a little bit more than you'd want, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I think a few types are essential in draft. Dragon is not one of them. It's one of the kind of traditional like type cores with Fairy Dragon Steel. Pretty much the whole community knows those aren't really a thing anymore. But I would have liked to see a Dragon here just because, and we didn't mention this on the last team for the type matchups, but you only have one water resist, you only have one electric resist. Throwing in a Dragon would help that out. And then I don't think there's any other types that I'm too concerned about in terms of not having enough resistances, but those two were like a little bit, if your one water resistance gone, I don't know, an Urshifu Rapid might be really good here. I'm just making stuff up, but there's something like that. I do think Porygon might come one week, like specifically for Spectrier or something like that. It's not the worst 1-point normal, but it's certainly not good. And just to give some credit to Darksponge, it does have the fire immunity. So although this team is not really weak to fire, I do kind of like that you can just absorb like, Will-O-Wisp and stuff like that, which is pretty good against this team otherwise. So yeah,
I do agree with
one knockoff in Cryogonal is also. I don't like Cryogonal at all, so I kind of consider this team having no knockoff. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you overall. I mean, Palafin being your only water resist isn't great because there's so many bulky waters in draft. Other than that, like you touched on earlier, we'll have loved to see a grass type or a dragon. Grass type just beats a bunch of bulky waters, which your team kind of has trouble with, other than Zapdos. And I didn't mention it earlier, but you do have a good amount of priority mons. Obviously, it's going to be Palafin and Urshifu most of the weeks, but Cinderace can run Sucker Punch, Nidoqueen can if it has to. So yeah, the speed, it solves a little bit of the speed tiers, but it's just putting a band-aid over the wound, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, one quick thing before we go, if we're just doing vibe check, I mean, Palafin and Urshifu do an insane damage, so the kind of scariness factor of this team is still certainly there. Even Cinderace
is a very powerful team, despite low.
Yeah, we point out a bunch of flaws, but at the same time, it's like Palafin and Urshifu might be the two strongest single attacks in the format or something like that. They're definitely in the top 5.
You want to move on now?
Yeah.
All right. Oh boy, do I love Iron Bundle. Obviously, if you followed my channel personally, you know that I have a really big love-hate relationship with it, as you can see by the pictures. Actually, in the bottom left is the picture I posted when I drafted Iron Bundle, and then it missed a Hydro in the semis, two actually. But yeah, to move on to the actual team, Iron Bundle is great. I'm just gonna preface this now. I think with Iron Bundle, you need another bulky water, or you need another water because Iron Bundle is not bulky, and you don't have that. In fact, but you have a Roaring Moon and Moongus. It kind of ties together. Honestly, it's another one of those teams where nothing truly scares me. Like Iron Bundle and Roaring Moon are good. There's just nothing that puts fear in my heart. Other than that, brother, you lose to Edgequake. I know that may be a thing of the past, but everyone in its mother gets Earthquake, and the ones that get Stone Edge, you're just kind of screwed against.
Yeah, it's a little bit less Edgequake and more just the Quake side of it, but then your only ground answer... Did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, I was waiting for you to take over, my bad.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you just cut out. Yeah, your only ground answer is Tornadus, and obviously you can go like flying on Florgus or, God forbid, flying Pincurchin. But then you just have two flying types on your team, and you're still weak to Stone Edge. I guess you could go
Grass Pincurchin.
Terra Bug, Terra Grass. These don't seem very good. You're just Terra Grass, Florgus. Sure, you're resisting ground, but then you've got. Yeah, you're still weak to poison. You've got 4 weaknesses in total, I think.
Can't touch fire still.
Yeah, so the ground weakness really brought this down for me. And you actually, I thought you ranked this so low because of Iron Bundle. I ranked it low because of Iron Bundle, because I just think Iron Bundle is bad. And to your point of the water type, I think you need a water type with your Iron Bundle teams, not because it's not a bulky water. It is actually kind of physically bulky. It can live some hits on the physical side.
It lives more
of course, you're not. Yeah, I mean, 114 defense is crazy, but obviously especially defensive is horrible. But more importantly, it's because it doesn't have a reliable water stab, and you can't go Terra Water for Terra Blast on this because we're not doing high tier Terras. So you kind of need a bulky water, partly for the bulky side, and partly just because you don't actually have an offensive water type here. A good Iron Bundle team should be clicking Freeze Dryer, Ice Beam almost all the time. If you have to rely on Hydro Pump, you're going to lose a lot of your games.
Yeah.
Some things I do like here, Jirachi's a really good utility mon. I think it's kind of a mini Lando T, honestly. With this hazard, the pivot, the Thunder Wave, Healing Wish. It has all those utility moves, while at the same time it has setup. It has the Iron Head shenanigans. It has a lot it can do, and it also gives you a lot of resistances. So Jirachi is definitely a big plus for me on this team, as well as Iron Hands. A nice slow pivot, which people don't really draft it for. People tend to draft it for more on the setup side, but you have Roaring Moon. So I guess you kind of have more your bulky setup and your fast setup. So I do like those aspects. Another knock for me on this team is the Pincurchin. I don't think if you're bringing Pincurchin, I just don't really think it's a good match. You're kind of playing a 5v6, and I know Pincurchin's weirdly kind of bulky, but it's not really that bulky, and I don't want to be putting Terra on it either. So yeah, I also think Iron Bundle doesn't use Quark Drive that well, and Iron Hands at the same time I don't think uses Quark Drive. I think those more base 100, base 110, we'll see another Electric Terrain team later. I think those ones use Quark Drive a lot better than these two Quark Drive users, and of course you're relying on a very weak Pokemon to set that up. Yeah, not a big fan. The Mega Camera Up is also kind of just thrown on there.
It's there.
I feel like you really want that you want it on a Trick Room team, and I don't know if this has a Trick Room setter. Maybe Jirachi gets it. I have no idea, but it's you could try Iron Hands, Mega Camera Up, Trick Room, but that doesn't seem very strong to me.
Yeah, no. I do like Iron Bundle. I just don't think it can be on a good team where it's the main threat. I don't like it as a round 1 pick. Now, if you get to round 2 and Iron Bundle's there, it's a great secondary threat. but it feels like it's going to have to carry, which I don't trust, to be honest. Outside of that, though, yeah, I like the just capabilities. I like the wish passing for Iron Hands, Amoonguss, even Roaring Moon, which is a lot bulkier than people give it credit to. The hazard game is like, I mean, you're going to be clicking Stealth Rock most of the time. If a Kirchen comes, it is going to be probably a spike setter, but it's not going to come that often, in my opinion. But yeah, I love the momentum. I do wish you had a better rapid or a rapid spin or a better defogger, because I don't think Florges or Land or Torn want to be relegated to that role. Overall, it's all right. That's why I mentioned earlier, all of the teams are so good that the ones that are lowest aren't bad. But this is a very all right team.
Yep. I think we can probably get on to the next team here. Yes. So if you want, I can just take this one.
Yeah, this is the big team we kind of split on.
Yeah, there were, I think, 2 teams we had a big disagreement on. Otherwise, we're actually pretty close on most of our rankings, and we weren't talking during the rankings, so this were just completely by chance. But anyway, I did struggle with this team. I almost put it in like the 12 to 14 range, but I was thinking more, and I think Rillaboom is just so good here. Like, Ursaluna and Mew love grassy terrain so much. Like, having extra hazards leftovers on Pokemon as bulky as those two, who love to be like, well, Mew more of a setup sweeper, Ursaluna more of just like a wall breaker with no setup. They have their own recovery in I think Moonlight and then whatever Mew runs. But then they get in extra leftovers. You can run their own leftovers, so it's like, yeah, poison heal. And with how bulky they are, they're just going to be really hard to take down. And the same applies to Melmetal, which kind of is at the end of the team, so you kind of forget about it. So I really think this team just uses grassy terrain well. You have Unburden Grafai, which can be kind of cool. You might bring it here and there. It is Terra, so like that's sort of supposed to be your fast Pokemon. And then the Quaquaval, or however you say that, I really like it as a sweeper. I think irrespective of grassy terrain, it's just a nice mon on any team. Doesn't really need any synergy. It kind of just does what it does, wins you some games. But the defense on this team is a bit of a downside. Like, I think Mew probably wants to be more offensive. Rotom Heat's like okay defensively. It's kind of more of like a somewhat bulky utility, sometimes offensive thing. And then Aromatisse, kind of the same thing. It's like, it's bulky, but it's not super bulky. So you don't have that really rock solid defensive core that I'd like to see. But I do think the bulky offense of this is like incredible. So you can talk about why you think it's horrible, though.
I don't think it's horrible. It just bugs me, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's the Grafai being the fastest mon. I don't think so, because I've definitely had teams with worse speed tiers than this. I've done fine with them. I guess I was thinking of Rillaboom more as, or grassy terrain more as, so you don't lose to grounds, but the team really doesn't. So I just figured it was there for grassy glide to go boom. And I think it does. I really do like Driftbloom. I think it's a great 4-pointer, and with Terra, it's even better. Both the Terra captains are very underrated, in my opinion. I think they're quite good. Aromatisse is a little too passive for my liking, and it's a good wish passer, don't get me wrong, but I don't really think, like, I just don't know that the mons that would like to get wish passed into are bulky enough. Like, Melmetal is fine, doesn't take a special hit. Ursula Blood Moon, that's probably your main wish target. Rotom Heat is fine as well. In terms of the overall defense, that's where it starts to get shaky for me. Driftlum's a little more bulky than it leads on sometimes, but I don't know. I don't think this team loves to be hit with stuff like Toxic, which I know a lot of teams don't. But it just feels like it can get chipped down very easily. And I don't know. No Dragon and no Dark was big for me. Like we talked earlier, no Dragon's fine. I think having a dark type is very crucial in Gen 9. I'm not sure how other people feel about that, but especially with ghosts like Spectrier, Dragapult, Golden Go on the board, even Gengar as well. Just I feel like offensive ghosts are really good in Gen 9, especially towards the top. No dark type is questionable. Now you do have a bunch of knockoff users, but I don't know. I feel like there is more holes than some of the teams above it. A bunch of the other teams are ranked above it, and that's just kind of where it ended up falling. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The dark type was a big knockdown for me too. I think if it had a dark, it'd at least go up one spot. And another thing for dark types and why they're essential, because I have moved towards the idea that almost no types are essential. I do think dark is one of the essential ones. It's partly the ghost thing. You don't want to get swept by Spectre. It's also for stored power. If you have no stored power, or if you have no dark and they have stored power, they know they can run it for free. Now, of course, Terra always throws a wrench into that plan, but then since it's Terra Preview, once they see you don't have Terra Dark if you didn't bring it, then they just know their stored power mon is a free sweep. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do have two normals. Like, Ursaluna can definitely take on those, those ghosts I mentioned, but, like, do you really want that to be your primary ghost stopper?
I actually probably would like it. I don't think it's too bad.
It's
ghost
not,
types,
but it can get
actually, I guess some ghost types get Focus Blast, which isn't great, and it doesn't have the best special bulk, which is what most ghosts are. But it's pretty just naturally bulky.
Yeah,
I don't hate it, but it's more for the psychic check, because you're only you have Mew and Melmetal. It's like not the worst. That's why I didn't bring it down too far. But I would like that solid answer to psychics. That's just a guaranteed immunity. So yes, we can move on.
Dark, there is a lot of knockoff users. It's like half your team. So that's why it didn't bring me too far down. But yeah, let's move on. This is kind of the point where I felt a shift. Like from here all the way to like close to top 5, I actually could see it being air changed personally. How do you feel about Relix's team?
Yeah, this is one I struggled with. It was bouncing around in the rankings for me. And it ended up kind of just going on the vibe check. I for some reason, I don't think Blaziken is that good. And I know, like, anyone watching this who's not in NPBA probably thinks I'm crazy, because I have not seen another league have Blaziken legal, but we've had it legal for a few seasons now. And it's certainly not a top 5 Pokemon. It's probably not a top 10 Pokemon in Nat Dex. I'd say it's probably like the 5th or 6th best fighting type. And keep in mind we have both Zamazenta's legal, but it's obviously not bad. It doesn't feel like the best mon on a team for me. It feels like the second best mon on most teams. I will say the big reason I dropped this team so much is I think Tapu Fini is just bad here. I don't think it fits on this team at all. The Misty Surge weakening Dragon type moves is going to be, it's not the worst for Mega Garchomp, but Mega Garchomp does like running like Draco Meteor, Scale Shot, stuff like that. That's going to be a bit of an issue, but you already have a bulky Fairy with Defog on Weezing, which also has a lot of other similar moves to Tapu Fini. You already have a Water in Greninja. I know like some people like getting a bulky Water when they draft Greninja, but it's like you only have 9 Pokemon, and one of them is doubling up on 2 types you already have. Like, I think you can do that when you have 10 or 11, but not with 9. It's of course not bad, but you also have no healing on, I want to say, any of your defensive Pokemon, from Bronzong, Weezing, Regirock, and Fini. I think your only healing move is like Training Kiss. So I really like at least one of your defensive mons to have a healing move, as well as a slow pivot move, which once again none of them have. So the defensive core just doesn't do it for me here. Obviously the offense is good. Like Mega Garchomp, Greninja are amazing sweepers. If you run Battle Bond Greninja, which is not listed on the top here, but Battle Bond is legal. And of course Jolteon's a nice, I don't know what you call it, whatever you call Jolteon, attacker. But the defense brought it down for me here. But you can go ahead.
Yeah, so Jolteon for me, it's like, I don't even know what you call it. It's just kind of like Iron Bundle to me, where get a lot of matchups in the season where Terra Jolteon hits like the entire team. But yeah, other than that, Feeny, I'm going to be real. I think it was like 17-16. I just would love to see a different 16 high tier pointer or a high point mon.
I would love to see that just split into 2 Pokemon, honestly.
Honestly, yeah. But the defensive healing, it's Wheezing Pain Split, and that is a super feels bad considering that your Wish Passer is a Jolteon who, in my 9 weeks of using it last season, did not click Wish once. Or Baton Pass for that matter.
You have Volt Switch, you don't need either.
Exactly.
Well, you don't need Baton Pass, I should say.
But yeah, honestly, this is going to sound super bad. This feels like a team of misfits. Like, it feels like a team of Mons that other people just threw to the side of the road. But yeah, Blaziken, Sam and I actually had this discussion a lot. There are so many good fire types between the Zamas, Mega Metacham and Gallade, the Urshifus, Blaziken, and even more that it's just, I don't know. It's just not my favorite fighting type, and I forget what pick it is. I think Relix had pick 10. So it's fine.
Yeah.
I just would have loved to see a better team around it. When I was actually going through like my I call it the rubric. It's literally the third slide. I did like it, and then I just completely JSauce vibe checked it and threw it down. And yeah, the ground weakness is very scary to me. Now, at least your 2 immunities aren't weak to Stone Edge, but your 2 immunities also have other abilities that wants to run some matches. So yeah, I liked it at first, and then the more I saw the other teams, I kind of just started slowly moving it down until I got to 10.
Yeah, I think with the immunities on the Bronzong and Weezing, you're usually running Levitate, and I think pretty much any week, if you need another ability on one of them, you can just keep Levitate on the other one. But then you have to bring both every time, or just lose to ground type. So it's gonna be a kind of guessing game of like, or not a guessing game. It's gonna be matchup dependent thing on just how many grounds they have.
Yeah.
But it's worth noting this was a pick 10 Blaziken, which is a fine spot for it. But Zamazenta Crown was picked after at pick 11
or something, or was it 11? There was some draft.
It was 11, which is crazy. And Great Tusk was pick 15, which we already mentioned. You could argue Great Tusk and Blaziken. I don't think you can argue Zamazenta Crown personally. I mean, if you're just basing it on your ranking of fire types, Blaziken's probably the best one. It's definitely the best one, actually. It's not even close. But there's a lot of mid-tier fire types that you can always get. And obviously, Close Combat is your primary stab, not Flare Blitz, just because of the recoil. So I shouldn't rag on the Blaziken pick too much. It's if a lot of times with first picks, you're just like, I want to use this Mon. I'm going to take a good Pokemon and build a team around it. And Blaziken might be 10% worse than Zamazenta. That's fine. If you wanted to build a team around it, that's okay. But of course, we have to take that into account in the power rankings.
Yep. At the end of
that
the
is going to hurt the team.
Fun is what matters in Pokemon Draft. I've dropped many leagues just because I'm not having fun with the team I built, or obviously real life stuff too. But I think having fun is the best quality in a draft. And so if you have a Mon you never got to draft, you want to try it out, you draft it. That's why you see some of these leeches, obviously, especially in more experienced drafts, people don't want to draft the same thing over and over again. And also, I was going to talk about, you've heard of 4 move slot syndrome. This is 6 Mon slot syndrome, where you've got too many good enough to bring Mons, and more than 6 that want to come every week.
I think you can reasonably bring the top 6 and then maybe switch out one of the defensive mons for Feeny pretty much every week. Zoroark, just another one that I don't think it's bad, but you have 4 like real dedicated attackers and 4. Well, Regirock's kind of a weird like setup. I don't know what Regirock's here for. It's fine. It's a good Terra Cap, but you have like 3 dedicated defensive, 4 dedicated offense. I think Zoroark could have maybe been some more utility, or I don't know, maybe something else. It's fine.
Yeah, My problem
Gives
with
you some
Zoroark
immunities, of course.
is just that in a team like this, obviously, it's going to come back to personal experience for me. Last season, I had my 3 top mons weak to fighting, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a Zoroark. And then the 5 weeks I had it, it never came once, just because my other mons were so much more valuable week by week. It just kind of was there. And I'm worried that's going to happen at this team, where you're just sitting
Yes.
12 points every single week, and you could get a better value out of it. Maybe combine it with Feeny and get 2 really good mons.
Exactly. I find it unlikely that. Yeah, we can move on. I think my point there was your top 4 are better offensively. It's going to be unlikely that you need a 5th offensive mon.
And you have a Weezing.
That's where I fall on that.
Anyways.
Yeah. Well,
right.
We can go on to our next team. You can take this one first.
Yep. So the Idaho Ironheads and Coach Coltrane's. This is a team that Jared and I both had in the same spot, essentially. It's just weird for me. Like, there's mons I like, mons I don't. I really love Spidops. I have Spectre right now, and I think my biggest gripe with this team, to be honest, is the fighting type. Like, Mega Macham's fine, but if you're pairing them all with Spectre, it doesn't want to be a fighting type to Spectre. It doesn't want to be weak to fighting and neutral to dark. And the momentum...
You mean Ghost, weak to Ghost.
Or, yeah, weak to Ghost. And your actual pivot mons, which are essential for Spectre and Metacham, it's Moltres and Rotom Wash, because Spidops and Comfy is good, it's just not going to run U-turn. That's just the nature of it. Like, I just would love to see some better mons to support Spectre and, like, Tinglu. It is relatively... It's not very weak by any means, but I just would have loved to see some better resist other than Moltres. And I think Klefki is fine. I would have loved to see another steal as well. There's just some mons I'd love to see other mons on this team, to be quite frank. Yeah,
I think this is another issue, and we'll actually get to this similar issue when we get to my team in a few slides. Actually, maybe it's the next slide, but I don't love drafts that only have 9 Pokemon, because you're always going to feel like you're missing something.
Yep.
And there's only, you don't have to have every type, but when you have 9 Pokemon and your 9th pick is doubling up on a type you already had, I don't love it. I know it's like a Terra Cap, so it's like Comfey's kind of a fairy type, but you're actually going to go maybe Terra Psychic for Store Power. I don't even know what you go for it. But I think my bigger issue with this team comes back to the fact that you really only have 2 real attackers. I know Moltres and Superior are offensive, but obviously Mega Metacham and Spectre. We were talking about like best clicks in the game. Mega Metacham Close Combat's one of the strongest moves in the game. Spectre obviously needs to get either a setup or a Grimnay boost to get going, but after that, it's also one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. I do like that you took Tinglu, because it's one of the best Spectre checks. So that's kind of a nice thing there. You don't have to worry about the 1 week you're facing Tinglu, but there's a lot of dark types, a lot of normal types that can all, and of course Terra Captains that are just fairly bulky that can take down a Spectre. And while Metacham does help, like you said, with those dark types, I don't really see how you beat like a really good ghost type. I guess you beat it with Spectre itself, but if they come in and surprise you with a Scarf Gengar or even like a Mega Banette with Shadows could be scary here.
Yeah.
Which I know a team does have that. It just feels like when you only have 2 really good attackers, if one falls, your plan's gonna fall apart a little too quickly. And Klefki has great utility. I like it. I like paralyzing stuff with Thunderwave, getting screens up for your offensive mons. Even screens for Superior could be nice too. I am not a Spidops fan. I think it's bad. I don't think webs are very good. Does it even get webs?
Yes, it does.
It does. Webs. We don't have webs on this list here, but it's a low tier. So like, what else are you gonna get? But not my favorite team. I maybe wish that some of those higher tiers were broken apart into a few different mons, like, you know, maybe Moltres becomes Talonflame and you get a few extra points here and there and throw together something else. But overall, it's still good. If you get a Grimnay boost on Spectre and then you break down their Dark or Normal, you probably win the game. So it's going to win games. It's still the 11th ranked team, I think, on average. And that's still a good team. So
I also want to throw in, I will, with Tinglu and Spidops and even Klefki, I would have loved to see a Rapid Spinner. Maybe it's a Fortress instead of a Klefki, because you already have a Comfy or whatnot, right? But all of the Mons are defogged, which means getting up hazards and getting them to stay are going to be a little tricky. And I don't think your Moltres appreciates that. Obviously, it's going to be boots anyways most weeks. But taking unnecessary chip, it's just not fun. It makes it a lot harder to win. But
yeah, I think that kind of comes back to a point I was bringing earlier. I do think you can run defog pretty effectively here. You have a lot of good defoggers. Like Rotom and Moltres are like phenomenal defoggers, and you have 6 or you have 5. But that's awesome. But when you have Tinglu and Klefki, who are, and I'm not counting Spidops, but you have Tinglu and Klefki, who are 2 like phenomenal hazard setters, you're kind of wasting their potential. And earlier I was saying maybe you could break something apart into like 2 Pokemon and get a 10th on. I kind of wonder if maybe you're wasting their potential a bit and not getting the full value out of their points because of the defog thing. So,
and I know it's 2 ones of the entire draft league, but what happens when you run into the gold team or even Annihilate? Which, to be fair, I don't think it's drafted in Kanto. But if you face Golden Go, you kind of shit. If you face Golden Go, you kind of shit yourself. Now, Rapid Spin wouldn't help that, unless maybe you got like a Colossal or something, which can actually hit Golden Go. So yeah, I don't know how valid that point is. It's just like a point more so that Rapid Spin is just really good and Hazard's not good to be up on your side. But anyways, I think what Joe's looking up, we can
there's no Annihilate, but
okay,
whatever.
Yeah.
That's
man, whoever drafted this next team, I bet is so sexy and hot and the best owner in draft league history. It's Joe, everybody.
Yeah, maybe you should talk first, so you don't. I don't, because I have the most biased view, of course. So I want to see what you think.
I know Shaman Sky is a very controversial mon. I honestly love it, even with Covert Cloak in the game, because you got steel types like Melmetal, like Iron Treads that don't want to switch in, and they probably are going to be running AV over Cloak, which means you can just Seed Flare into Earth Power and just shit on their world. Other than that, Mega Glade is a very good mon. Again, kind of the same thing with Mega Medi. Just in general, you'd love for it to not be weak to Ghost and neutral to Dark, but you have a Samurai, which excels at taking both those hits, setting up spikes for Shaman, Mega Glade late game. Scizor especially thrives off those as well because Bullet Punch goes burr. And then I really love 3, 4, and 5. Samurai, Scizor, Sylveon work so well together in my opinion. Honestly, Scizor and then a water type in general. Like, I really love Scizor and Primarina, Quack, stuff like that. I'm indifferent on Nihilego. I just don't know how I feel about it. Because I don't think it's, like, that strong, but it does a lot of the things you want in a mon around its price range, which I believe is, like, a 12, 13, maybe even 14. And then the 2 Terra Captains, Oricorio and Drampaw. Drampaw's just a Chad pick. It's your dragon, which, as you're finding out, a lot of teams don't have dragons or very good ones at that. But Oricorio is...
To be clear, this is a very good dragon.
Oh yeah, sorry. Drampaw, best like 4-pointer or 5-pointer of all time.
It actually might be the best one.
I'm a Turk guy. I'm a Turk guy over Drampaw, but I like Drampaw as well. Oricorio is just a very good Terra Captain. Terra supports setup sweepers very well. And Oricorio, while it might not be the bulkiest mon in the world, if you get up a +2 especially, it just starts to kill things, and all of a sudden it's got 3 kills in a game, and makes your Scizor, any of those top 4 really, it makes that game so much easier for one of those monsters to just clean. Grandpa hits like a truck, if I'm not mistaken. What's it? 135? Yeah. You slap a Specs and a Terra Dragon, and if it's not Fairy type, it's not living. 2 of those. And I really like Mudsdale as well. I think my real knock on this team is the flying. The big one is the like the bottom right isn't as filled up as you want to be. Like, I know that's very vague, but the real hazard setters, it's like Nihilego and then Mudsdale clicking rocks. The defoggers
And Samurai.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Ceaseless Edge is a stupid move. So never mind. Take that point back. Defog. I don't know. I don't think none of the. I don't know how I feel about defog on a Scizor being your main removal. Obviously, in terms of momentum, that's another thing where I kind of, it was just like Scizor or Oricorio. Scizor is going to be bringing it like 9 times out of 10. And then Sylveon's a great Wish Passer. I think Samurott is a fake momentum mon. I don't think that mon ever clicks flip turn. I don't think I've ever seen it click flip turn. But I mean, it has it, so you can bring it if you want. And then Drampal can, weirdly enough, be an eject pack set, so it can have a one-time momentum. It's actually a pretty good set for it. It's just, it didn't fill up the box as much as you'd want it to. And then the flying weakness, it's like, it's fine, but then if there's a really good flying type that has stab, which I'm honestly not sure what the best one is. But off the top of my head, I was thinking like Scarf Staraptor, right? Something that just spams Brave Bird. Nihilego isn't the most physically bulky mon in the world, for sure. It's got 47 defense, but yeah, it's just, it honestly is a really nice team. There's just some major or some minor nitpicking going on. It's 11 for me, which out of 16 isn't that bad, especially when most of the teams can get interchanged, and I wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah, well, let me give you the idea behind this team. So, I didn't really want to pick Shaman Sky, but I knew the only 2 Pokemon I wanted for Chien-Pao and Dragapult were not getting to me, even though I was pick 5. So I got the Shaman. I know some people hate it, some people thought it shouldn't have even been allowed, so there's a pretty big variance on the opinions of this mon, but it's definitely good. Now, the one thing people who hate it always say is that Covert Cloak basically stops it. And that is true, but the goal of this team was essentially get a bunch of knockoff users, which you can see I did. I mean, Scizor, Samurott doesn't always run it, Mega Gallade is great, Nihilego sometimes runs it, but 2 definitely very good knockoff users and a couple extras. Gonna get rid of those Covert Cloaks, so I don't even have to worry about that all the time. And then the other idea was, if you're running Covert Cloaks, you're not running heavy duty boots, so get good hazard setters. So we got the spikes on Samurott, we got the rocks on Nihilego and Mudsdale, and we got the toxic spikes on the Nihilego. Now, I know people don't love Nihilego as a hazard setter, but Focus Sash with toxic spikes is a pretty solid set. Of course, the main hazards are going to be coming from Samurott, so you kind of have that synergy there of like a lot of knockoff and then forcing a lot of boots and or Covert Cloak and getting rid of those so that it doesn't even matter in the first place. That was kind of the core idea of this team. The flying weakness is definitely an issue. Having my best 2 Pokemon weak to flying with the only resist being Nihilego isn't great. I will say Oricorio, I have all forms, so I can run the electric one. Not that that's a bulky Pokemon either, but it's a little bit extra. I will say, for anyone watching who doesn't know, maybe I shouldn't reveal this to the Kanto coaches, but Revelation Dance, which is Oricorio's signature move, does work with Terra. So, like, if I'm Fire Oricorio, but I'm Terra Water, my Revelation Dance will be Fire, but then once I click Terra, it'll become Water. So it's kind of like it's a 10 base power stronger Terra Blast, which is pretty nice. Of course, you lose the stab move, but you can do it strategically to, like, do it later. Like, you don't have to click it right away, obviously. Yeah, I think the pivoting could be a bit better. I did want to get 2 slow pivots in Scizor and Sylveon. and kind of make those more dedicated defensive Pokemon. So you're probably going to be seeing like Defog, Roost, Scizor a little bit more than you might expect on every team, just because my top 3 plus like Nihilego or Oricorio even drop are already so offensive that like Scizor doesn't need to be offensive. So of course I'm biased to my own team, and I'm sure all of these teams have these like intricate synergies that we didn't notice. That's why I did put it a little bit higher. One other thing, one knock on my team, I do wish I had more than 9 Pokemon, but Oricorio kind of counts as multiple just with the multiple forms.
Yeah, just
call it 9.5.
Yeah, it's not
good.
I just wanted to point out how much I love some of these Mon. I'm not the world's biggest Shaman Sky fan, but I consider myself a pretty good fan of it, and I just love Samurott and Scizor, and even a Wish Passer with Scizor. I don't even know how to explain it. I just love it. And then I also did not realize that. I guess I kind of forgot that was all form Oricorio. But at the same time, if I remember correctly, it was 2 points last season, and I don't know if it got drafted, but in like one division.
Yeah, we forgot that it was like broken with Terra. I think it's like 7 now, but we actually accidentally left it. We left it at 2 points in Ore, just completely by mistake, and someone got it. So, congrats to them.
It was 2 points in Hoenn as well. I just didn't draft. I didn't draft it because I just drafted Jolteon.
Was it?
Yeah, it was 2 points because I was telling everybody about it, and I'm like, bro, I'm gonna draft this, and then didn't draft it.
Something is weird with the docs then. That's for the day.
Or at least that was last season. It's 7 there this season, but
okay, yeah, it was 2 last time.
Yeah, I would have loved to see another speed tier in between either Shaman and Gallade or like Samurott and Scizor. Just one of the two, I think, would make this team even better. But yeah, I think it's time to move on. We've been kind of yapping.
Yeah, let's keep it going.
You want to start off with this one?
Yeah, this is the first pick team. I saw it and I immediately thought it was like super broken. And then I saw all the other teams and I was like, okay, literally every team is super broken. So I had to move this out of the one slot.
Does Blood Notes Sheltails banned?
That was the first thing I thought. I was like, wow, you took both of the Shed-Tail Pokemon, but Shed-Tail's banned. I'm sure he knows because Cyclozar's like 11 points or something. He's an admin. No, he knows. Yeah, he
knows. Yeah,
he knows. No. He did it intentionally, and Cyclozar is actually very good. You could argue 11 points without Shed-Tail is actually still too low. I think I've seen like 13 before, 14. Like it has a ton of utility with. Well, it's better in Paldea decks because Rapid Spin is so much more scarce there, but it's still very good here.
I like both the Shed-Tail mons individually. I just don't know how I feel about them together.
I don't know if they really even interact on this team very much. I do like Earthworm as like with Earth Eater. I think Earth Eater is like such a good ability, and this team it's a little weak to ground without that. Like you do have like the Slowking and the Sandy Shocks, as well as like all of your top mons not being resistant to ground. So having that Earth Eater as well as the Togekiss is pretty nice. Just for like a random Landorus or something like that. Chen Pao. I was going through the board. I think it's my favorite Pokemon on the board. I think it's my number 1. Like if I had first pick, I would take Jianpao. I really love how it first of all doesn't take up a Mega slot, even though it's like as powerful as some of the Megas in terms of damage output. It has 2 forms of priority. You got Sucker Punch and Ice Shard. You've got the setup. You've got the Sacred Sword, which is really all the coverage you need just to hit those Steel types. There's probably some random Pokemon that wall it, but like doesn't really have anything that just straight up walls it.
Water Fairies.
You got this
a bit of trouble.
Yeah, like Primarina, Tapu Fini. Oh, so I guess that Tapu Fini takes it. But Slowking is that your only slow pivot? You could run like Baton Pass Togekiss, but I do like to see more than one slow pivot. The pivoting is pretty good though. You've got Volt Switch, Sandy Shocks. You've got a couple of U-turners. Why did I have this team low? I think this team is low because you've got like, I feel like you don't have enough fast attackers. Maybe that's not even true because you have Chen Pao and Ogerpon, but Yeah, I might be a little underrating this team. I guess maybe the rock weakness I didn't love. You got 3 things weak to rock that are coming pretty
Yeah.
much every week, and I guess that's it. Your removal is just 2 Pokemon, and they don't always. I mean, Cyclozar probably does want to run Rapid Spin, but Togekiss isn't always going to be able to defog. You sometimes want to run like the Jirachi, like Air Slash Flinch kind of set. So the rock weakness is a bit of an issue for me, and I'm not sure if I love your Terra captains personally. I think they're actually pretty good on their own, but I don't know if they really need Terra.
That's how.
But maybe you disagree.
I mean, I really love Orthorn as a Terra captain. I would have loved to see something other than a Heracross, to be quite honest with you. Like, it's good, but I just don't know how well it fits into the team, to be quite frank. And I'm glad you were talking all that about Chanpao, because I got a 12th pick. And
That is insane.
Yeah, I guess nobody just wanted it. But yeah, Chanpao Cloaking is a great pairing. It's probably one of the best Chanpao pairings. I just don't know. I feel like after that, I just don't really fall in love with the picks. That's kind of where I was leaning towards the middle section in terms of all of these teams. Like, it is a fine team. It's just nothing that stands out to me. I think Ogerpon and Togekiss, even Orthworm, are going to steal a couple games. Like, this is not going to be a bad team, I don't think. And to be quite honest with you, I didn't realize Clawitzer was that bulky. I was thinking, man, you could have got Samurott. But it's pretty much equal bulk, and Clawitzer's a better attacker. So I do like it. I almost wish it was Terra, and you get like a 10-pointer, or even a better 9-pointer. But Orthworm needs Terra to be as good as a 5th pick. It's just alright. Like, I'm very neutral towards it. I think the speed tiers are fine, to be honest. I would love to see one in the 90s, but Heracross and other Mons, like Mega Bayonet has Shadow Sneak, Togekiss is a great Scarf Mon. You can definitely work around it. But yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. And Cyclozar does not love to run. Like, it's a very good utility Mon. It's like, I don't want to directly compare it to Torn, but it's something in that realm where it's a very good, just like...
Oh, I think it's very similar to Torn.
It is, but it's just like, Torn is a way better attacker. It's
for sure.
Of course, that's why it's like 20 points or whatever it is. But Cyclozar loves to run specs some matchups, likes to be a more offensive build, and I just don't know if I can see it doing that in this team. That's part of where it's 11 points, to be honest, because it can run offensive sets if it needs to.
I think I might disagree there. I think it's fine without it. Maybe the fact that you're like a little short on attackers, it's not too bad. Like, it kind of forces into that role, but like I see this as basically like Rapid Spin, U-turn, knockoff, and one attack, like Draco Meteor or Flamethrower or something. Like, that's kind of what I see Cyclozar doing almost every week.
I mean, fair enough. I just think that there's one or two...
I don't see that as much of an issue as maybe you do, but I can certainly see it. I do agree it's going to be hard to run the spec set. I just don't know how bad that is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just know that about every time I see a Cyclozar team, there's 1 or 2 matchups a year that Cyclozar would love to run specs. Other than that, though, I mean, I think your physical attackers outweigh your special attackers, which isn't a bad thing, especially with the existence of AV. I think it's better than the other way around. But I almost wonder, your fast attacking Mons, for the most part, are those physical Mons. I wonder how much Togekiss is going to want to run Scarf or any speed booster at all. And then Sandy Shock's the same thing. I feel like Sandy Shock's in draft doesn't really run Scarf because there's so many good Mons that wall it. But other than that, I think the team's fine. I think it's pretty good. All right.
Let's move on. This is our other big disagree.
Do you want me to talk about it first?
Yeah, you can take it first.
So, I hate Golden Go in draft. I'm just going to put it out there. But Gliscor and Clefable pairing is so nasty. And I feel like it's so good with Golden Go. that it kind of takes away Golden Go's weaknesses in draft. I don't know why I don't like it. I'll be real, I didn't run Scarf very much unless I had Trick. But I feel like it's a little overrated for how much it doesn't owe you. And I love the Mega Beedrill pick. And then after that, it's a little questionable. I love Colossal, especially as a Terramon. But it's just, I don't know. I feel like the first 4 picks are really, really tough to break, in addition to at least Hydreigon Golden Go specifically, just being immediate breakers and good setup mons. I think Clef may be the most annoying mon in draft, at least for me. It feels unbreakable, despite the stats being mid, and I just like this team. Like, there's nothing that really knocks it for me. It feels pretty complete to me. I don't know. The Ghost being weak to Ghost as a team isn't great. Like I mentioned, obviously you have Golden Go, but like I mentioned, there's Specs, there's Pulse, there's Gengars, there's other very good Ghosts out there, and Hydreigon being your primary who falls to that, when some of these Ghosts, like Gengar, like Spectrier, they get Dazzling Gleam, which it just feels like some Ghosts can run through your team. I do love the Terra Captains. I think they are very good. I don't know how... I'm a little split on Teleon, but I feel like with Terra, it's going to be a really hard-hitting water type. And you have your Bulky Water, which I'm a fan of. Well, I'm a fan of Bulky Waters. I'm not necessarily a fan of Tauros. I think Cart is a great pick on this team. If I'm mistaken, that is your Steel type. No, you have another... Oh, you have Golden Go. But yeah, anyways, I think for as much pressure as some of these other mods put in, Cart can very easily just come in and clean up. So I feel like... I don't know, I feel like sometimes... I feel like this team is just going to have one mon you don't prep for. Because it's so... it just feels like hell to prep for, and that's something I take in consideration as well as the overall power. That's kind of my spiel on it.
Yeah, I think on second thought, I'm maybe underrated this a bit. It's definitely not 6 for me. I could definitely see moving it up. I think there are a couple teams I might have after second thought moved down a couple slots, but this one could have gone up. It's another one I flip-flopped on. I think my issue with this team comes from, like, we were talking about like six Pokemon slot syndrome, and I think this team gets that a bit. Like, I feel like I struggle to see any matchup. Like, I feel like the team is such like a synergistic core 4 at the top that you kind of have to bring those 4, or else you're gonna risk certain typings just running through you. Like, it's, you know, obviously only 3. Like, Hydreigon's not really defensive. Like, Golden Go can be defensive, and obviously Gliscor and Clefable are more defensive. So you can almost say, like, well, you don't have to bring Hydreigon because it's an offensive Pokemon, and those are generally more flexible. But when you don't have your Dark type, and Golden Go is kind of the glue of your, like, hazard game, that's not going to be a good time for you. So then you're pretty much locked into those 4, which of course isn't a bad thing. They're good. But then it's like, what do you fill in? Like, you probably want to bring your Mega Beedrill, but that's going to be really weak to rocks, and you don't have... you do have removal, actually, but it's like, you're not going to want to run Defog. Like, you don't have good Rapid Spin except Colossal, which I'm actually pretty anti-Colossal. I'm more in favor of the Terra and Teleon, which I think we kind of flip on, but I'll get to that. It's like, your main removal's Defog, though. Like, you're not going to be able to bring Colossal every week. And you don't really want to Defog when you have Gliscor, Hydreigon, Clefable all setting up hazards. Even a random Toxic Spike Mega Beedrill, that's not happening. But Mega Beedrill, of course, very weak to hazards because you can't run Boot, you can't run Protective Pads, so you're going to be weak to Rocky Helmet, Iron Barbs, Rough Skin. Gets chipped down easily, so I think there's a lot of games you can't bring the B, despite it being your second strongest attacker. Cortana is somehow even stronger. It's close, though. I do like the Inteleon pick. Again, you might be forced into Boots a little more than you'd like. I know Inteleon people like to run Specs on, because its special attack is good, but it really benefits from Specs. I like it for Terra, just because... wait, does it get Terra Blast? I don't have time to look it up.
It should.
I think just
Gen 9.
I'm pretty sure it's in Gen 9. Yeah, that I was gonna say. I know I like it for a reason, but it doesn't get Terra Blast. It sucks. Yeah, it doesn't have great coverage. It has like Ice Beam, Air Slash, and U-Turn usually are its other 4 moves, or like another like Hydro Pump alongside not Scald, Surf. I don't know if it gets Scald, but having Terra Blast kind of rounds out that moveset, lets you find those 4 times weaknesses. Like you're facing a Pelipper, which actually kind of walls Inteleon. You can run Terra Electric and kill it or something random like that. It's just nice. I actually would bring Inteleon most weeks. Tauros then comes in and it's like, do I really want to bring 2 water types? I don't know. I like Tauros. I think the Intimidate is nice. Anger Point's cool for like Urshifu matchups.
And Kudchu is pretty cool.
Kudchu, you can run some funny stuff with Kudchu. I think all 3 of the new Tauros are actually really good. So I don't hate the pick, but again, it's like, does it really fit in? Like your top 4 are already like really nice and bulky. I don't know if I love Tauros here. And then I think Cortana's good. It does get walled by some stuff that I don't know if the team breaks very well. Like some steel types can wall it, and you don't have a real fire type. Like Colossal doesn't really do that much damage. I'm thinking like a Celesteela could be really problematic for this team, which is where your Inteleon's going to come in, of course, as your Terra Captain and be pretty nice there. So that is why I really do like the Inteleon pick. And then for Colossal, Hypno I'm not even talking about, but Colossal, I think all that said, like you've got those 8 at the top. You're going to be fighting between your 2 waters. You're going to be having to bring some offensive stuff to go with your bulk. I don't think Colossal really fits in too often. That said, 12 is too low. Like the hazard game with Gholdengo is still really nice with these breakers, or cleaners, I guess you'd call them. Cortana's more of a breaker, and Inteleon's, I don't know, attacker. Kind of like Jolteon. It's kind of like water type Jolteon, honestly. But yeah, I wouldn't put it up at 6. I might move it to 9 or 10 range. It's a nice team. In terms of vibe check, I don't really vibe with all these Pokemon, so it moved down on the vibe check. Plus, Hypno is an automatic like -3 on the vibe check.
Fair enough. I am gonna give my Colossal rep though. I think it's 6 points, and I don't know what 6.1 you draft over. I mean, it does everything you want it to do on this team. It's a good Terra Captain in my opinion. It's a great Terra, anything that resists water and ground, so it's a good Terra Grass because it's got Flash Fire. It also has Flame Body and Body Press. It takes a lot more than it should. I just feel like it's very good. In addition, with Gholdengo, it gets Rocks and Spikes, which obviously Gholdengo loves because it can wall it. I don't think Colossal's the best Gholdengo check in the world, but it is one of the only rapid spinners, at least in PAL decks, that can touch Gholdengo. So you take that off the board, that's nice.
Wait,
honestly.
Why can it touch Gholdengo?
Fire moves.
I thought you meant the wrap.
No.
I thought you meant the wrap and
Sorry.
hit the Gholdengo. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
But other than that, I just feel like it's very criminally underrated, especially with Terra. Because now it is Terra Preview, so if you see a Terra Grass, you're automatically going to assume it's Flash Fire. But with that being said, I think it's great at just doing what it needs to do. Set up hazards, click Rapid Spin, Will-O-Wisp if it needs to. It's just going to chip down stuff for late game for like a Mega Bee and Inteleon, Scarf Hydreigon. I just think it's a very good 6-point pick because I don't know what you're getting for 6 or 7 or even 8, depending on how much Hypno is, that is going to be better than Colossal.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like a normal type here, just maybe a little more Ghost Resist. And there are some good normal types in that range, but I think we should move on.
Yep. Okay. So this is Willow East Alliance.
Yes. So we've got, of course, most importantly, this team has Shellos. So you already got, you're pretty much already a guaranteed top half just with that. So this is basically rated on like a 1 to 8 scale, not a 1 to 16 scale. And then, you've just got so many avenues to win the game. I'll just run through them. So you've got Rock Polish Mega Diancie. You've got Zera Aura just being insanely fast, faster than Dragapult, which I love. I love how they made it like exactly 1 point more than Dragapult. You've got Dragon Dance Kyurem, as well as like that sub Freeze Dry Earth Power set with Roost. Both very good sets. So you got more of your bulky winner there. You got your Shell Smash Blastoise. The Hippowdon's kind of weird. Don't really know what it's doing here. It's a good bulky mod, but you don't have any Sand Abusers. Would have been cool to get like a random low tier Sand Sweeper, but that's fine. You don't need it. And then on the bulky side, you've got your Incineroar Corviknight, which is a decent pairing. You know, the Incineroar ground weakness is covered by the Corv. The Corv's fire weakness gets covered. No shared weaknesses. It's not like a perfect pairing, but it does work nicely. Corv can be more of your special wall because you have Hippowdon as such a bulky defensive mon, and then Incineroar with the Intimidate works out pretty nicely. Rhenoclus is kind of weird. I've never actually seen it used before, so we'll see. You know, you got Magic Guard, you got Regenerator. The one knock I have for this team, I have a couple. Your hazard removal, you can't run it on Blastoise every time, although sometimes you will. You're pretty much hinging on your Corviknight, and you know, Incineroar, Kyurem, they do run boots usually, but if they get knocked off or if they don't run boots for a different set that week, pretty rock weak. Zera Aura likes to pivot around, so you're a little bit hazard weak. It's not the worst. Your hazard setting's okay. It's not the best. I feel like if Corv dies, the defense of the team just falls apart. Yeah. You are missing resistances. You're missing like stacked resistances to a few types. You only have one ground, one rock. I think there was something else that only had one. I think if you take Shellos off the team, then redo the type chart, that maybe becomes true. Maybe not, but once the Corv dies, the bulk of the team, your answers go a little bit down the drain, in my opinion. So that kept it out of like the top 5, but you know, I still have it at 6. So feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's good. Obviously, it's the top half of the best division in NPBA. I just wish, first off, I've been informed that Closhi traded a Iron Valiant for a Mega Diancie, I believe 1-to-1.
Oh,
sure about that.
That was horrendous. No, and you'll see the Iron Valiant.
But
no, I was discussing with someone if that trade should be like reversed because it was so egregious, but we didn't do it. Yeah, looking back, it's not horrible, but it's I don't know why that trade happened.
It's pretty egregious. I will say, the lack of a fighting type, when I feel like there's so many good fighting types, even down the board, you look at Flamigo, you look at Passimian, both can Terra, I feel like both are really good budget options. And while Darks aren't specifically a problem because you have Incineroar and Mega Diancie, I guess, your team just really doesn't want to deal with them, to be quite honest. And then additionally, I would love to see a better ground type beater for Mega Diancie, for Zera Aura, for Incineroar. This may have, like, Blastoise is fine. Obviously, it gets Shell Smash, it can be offensive, but I'm worried it's going to be put on the defensive side more with this team. I would have loved to see a ground type that can, or a grass type that can punish grounds more. That's just a nitpicky thing.
Yeah.
I also
no, that was my point with the Corv being your only ground immunity when like your 2 best Pokemon are weak to ground.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot Kyurem. Kyurem's actually a pretty good ground beater, but is weak.
But it doesn't resist.
Yeah, it doesn't resist. It's weak to rock, which a lot of ground types have, especially nowadays. And I don't know. I don't like no grounded poison. I think is actually fine on this team because it would give you another ground resist. Obviously, Mega Diancie is like a fourth of a defogger or a rapid spinner, and then it's just I don't know. There's something else I was gonna harp on. I think the removal situation, like you mentioned, Corv is fine running defog every week. It's one of the best defoggers in the game, but there are some weeks where you'd rather not run it if Iron Defense Body Press is really good, or you need it to click whatever else it needs to, like it roost, U-turn, 2 stabs or something. And then, other than that, I'm not griping too hard, but after your first 3 mons, your speed tier drops to 78, which is something I couldn't help but notice.
Yeah.
And there a trick room setter? Reuniclus is a trick room setter, I guess. But
Trick room is really bad on this team.
yeah,
Trick room for Reuniclus itself, but you're not running like Hippowdon in Trick room.
Yes, there's not enough actual good attackers where you can run Trick room effectively. And I will say, I get the Hippowdon pick because your Corviknights are going to be weak, or not going to get chipped down from sand and stuff. A ground type is honestly super good here, just so electrics don't run through team with the Corviknight and Blastoise being your defensive backbone. I just don't know. I almost kind of wish there was a different ground type you drafted. Maybe one with spikes so Diancie doesn't have to run it.
He drafted something else and swapped it. I don't remember what it was. I can take a quick look if there's any more to say, but
yeah, I can start.
It was let's not dwell on this. He had something and he switched it, or maybe it was a trade. I don't know, but
Fighting Weak is also weak to me though. You've got 3 Fighting Weak mons, I guess.
That was the other one. You have 1 ground immune, 1 rock resist, and 1 fighting resist. So that's where I would like to see the poison type. Potentially, I don't know. You get rid of.
Yeah,
of course. You gotta keep the cellos, but
actual fighting types get a move to hit Reuniclus though, whether it be U-turn or knockoff. Like, despite Reuniclus having U-turn, being able to switch back out and switch back in again, it's not the world's greatest fighting check. And to be honest, 110 HP is good. 75 defense is not where you'd want it to be for a fighting check. It's just kind of I like the team though. Let's move on to HGC and the Tropical Toucannons. You want to go ahead and start this one off?
Sure. So this is getting pretty high up there. Of course, the really nice thing about this team is its speed. You got 138 on the Zama, 121 on the Torn. You got the 110 Ogerpon and then the 100 Chi-Yu. Of course, you do drop off after 90 on the Pikachu. I don't think that's the end of the world. I think after 90 you don't care too much, but you'd maybe like to see like a base 80. Not a big issue. You've got just really good, like, both offense and bulky offense. You've got like your kind of fast, your faster attackers. Torn, not always offensive, but Torn's a very fast attacker. Ogerpon got some nice damage there with Ivy Cudgel, and then you've got your Chi-Yu, which is probably a controversial pick, but of course does a lot of damage, and then Zamazenta with like body press or close combat just brings a lot of options to the table between those guys. And then I do like the Hatterene and the H-Slash being nice bulkier attackers. As well as Zamazenta. Obviously, Zamazenta is bulky and fast. So you've got the speed and the bulk, which I like. What I don't like is the defense pretty much only being Clodsire. I mean, you can run like defensive Zamazenta. But the defensive mon only being Clodsire means like when none of your Pokemon have healing moves besides technically Tornadus with regen, Clodsire being your only option for that is it's a little bit, leaving a little bit to be desired, so to speak. It's not the end of the world. Still a great team. Your setters for Hazard are Clodsire and Ogerpon, which is like fine. Your removal is only Torn, which is like not really fine, especially when Toxic Spikes can be pretty annoying for like Zamazenta. Of course, Hatterene has Magic Bounce, so you get a little bit there. But just a couple things I'd like to change. It's certainly a great team. Just the little things I feel like could be like slightly better. Like I wish you had one more of this, one more of that. But it's obviously a great team.
Yeah, I think that this might be one of the best 9 draft mods I've seen in a long time. Because you look at that overall weakness at the bottom left, and it's only negatively weak to one thing. It's positively resisting most types. Like ground is obviously a bitch for this team, but you have Torn, one of the best flying types in the game. And then Ogerpon is strangely bulky. Like you can run a bunch of bulky sets where you wouldn't imagine it to. Now I know Screamtail went before this, but imagine a Screamtail on this team instead of a Hatterene.
Yes.
It can Wish Pass, it can paralyze, obviously Hat can too. But I always would have loved to see it on this team. I think the question for me is really, how do I put this? It's like, what happens if a Claude or a Hatterene dies? I feel like you really limit your turns then, and without a Wish Pass, obviously Hat doesn't get Wish. I feel like you're kind of playing for 30 turn games or less, maybe even 25.
Oh, I think you're playing 20 turn games.
Fair enough. I feel like this team's going to be up-tempo as hell, which I don't hate, honestly. I honestly really like Pikachu. Was it 3 points this season? I know it was 1 last season. I want to say
it's 3, yeah. Vigoroth's 1. Also, Vigoroth is amazing, by the way.
Vigoroth is 1?
Yeah.
What the
but
hell?
Pikachu's 3.
Okay, that's kind of...
Vigoroth's usually 1.
Is it? I don't know. I've seen it. I guess I've seen it too. I just feel like
seen 2, but
very good 1-pointer.
I've beaten a Mega Mawile with Vigoroth. It's actually a really good Pokemon.
Vigoroth is super good with Eviolite. But yeah,
it has Slack Off.
It does.
So actually, yeah, you have 2 healers. You have Slack Off and Vigoroth too.
But at least
we don't evaluate it that
those
highly.
Bulky or those offensive ghosts we were talking about. And then Pikachu is honestly a fine Pokemon. I oddly like it this draft. I do wish for 9 months, I wish you had more momentum. Like 3 is fine, but I don't know realistically how much you're bringing Pikachu or how much you're bringing U-Turn on Ogerpon. I feel like most of the times it wants to be a more offensive mon with like coverage, but I've seen my fair share of U-turners. I do wish you had more removal specifically for that Chi-Yu, because it's really your only rock weak mon, but heavy duty boots Chi-Yu in draft feels like a waste. Like I used Chi-Yu last season and it was always Scarf or Specs. I feel like having rocks up, while it does push the 20 turns or less playstyle that your team is going to love, it's kind of bad for chipping your runs down. But other than that, I think the team's fine. I really like not necessarily how diverse it is. I like how well it covers each other's weaknesses in terms of just being in a 9-mon draft.
Yeah, the weaknesses are a huge plus here. Just not that many. Of course, 9-mon drafts are always going to have less weaknesses because you have less Pokemon, but just this one specifically is very good. Only issue being ground types, which is pretty much every team. That said, I think when you said with the pivots, I did want to say, like, you have, ignoring Pikachu, which is also kind of fast, you have 2 fast pivots, and Ogerpon's also not always running it. I like a slow pivot. I think not every team needs it, but a team specifically with Chi-Yu definitely benefits from a slow pivot. Chi-Yu's not bulky enough to switch. I mean, it's especially decently bulky, but it's not really bulky enough to switch in, especially when you compound the fact that it doesn't want to run boots usually. So I think having, like, just throwing it out there, like a slow bro or something with teleport, or just a slower pivot and Iron Hands or something, can be really nice for a Chi-Yu. And mons like that kind of take a little too much chip sometimes. Yeah, let's get going.
Okay, so next we have one of the teams that we are kind of split on. Jode had this as a top 3 team. I guess I just didn't see it, but I'll let him rant about it first.
Yeah, this is one of those, it's kind of a vibe check team for me. It's just got a lot that I would find difficult to take down, or I guess difficult to answer. So first thing is, I will say, maybe I'll first start with a negative of this team. You got the Sneasler, and your terrain setter is Arbolivo, which is like kind of funny. It's not good, but Sneasler doesn't need Unburdened to be good. The Sneasler Dire Claw it'll just cheese so many wins for you with the 50% status rate, and third of that being sleep. Like you're gonna win at least one game this season, possibly two, from like a random sleep, and that just shouldn't happen. I mean, it's a stupid Pokemon, and it does so much damage. 130 attack with close combat is just so powerful. And then on the special side, you have kind of the flip of this with the Thundurus being, I believe, 145 special attack. It's 145 and also decently fast at 101. Of course, your speed isn't the best here. You do have only 2 Pokemon above base 100. Maybe it seems like 1 or 2 spots too high. I don't know, but you do make that up with a couple things. You've got the Scizor with Bullet Punch, which you're always running, so that itself already is kind of it's not a fast Pokemon, obviously, but Bullet Punch is so powerful on Mega Scizor that like you can treat it as like a speedy mon. And this is the only team so far that I actually think in the odd week here and there you might be able to pull off Trick Room with now that it's Nat Dex, it's not Pal Dex, you have Teleport Slowking. So Teleport Trick Room actually works, unlike Chili Reception Trick Room. And if you go into that Terra Avalugg, Avalugg actually hits really hard. I don't think it's a good Pokemon. I think you only run it in this context. That could actually be an option here. So ultimately, I think you've got nice bulk. You got your Iron Thorns, which is obviously your main Terra Captain. You got your Mega Scizor, heals up. Your Slowking heals up. Crook is nice to intimidate. You get the hazards, you get the knockoff. I actually don't even know what Bezindipity does, but I'm sure it's decent. You got another slow pivot in Arcanine with the teleport there. Gonna bring in your Thundurus, gonna bring in your Terra Iron Thorns. I think this. Yeah, I can teleport.
That's high.
Is it not on here? Oh, we don't have teleport on the list here.
No,
but
I forgot how many more ones got it, to be honest. I just threw on Haze because I'm like, okay, that's kind of good.
Yeah, no, whenever I do that list, there's like 3 extra moves I want to run. But yeah, your hazard setters, they're maybe I'd like one more because Sneasler's never running it, but really Iron Thorns is going to be setting them every week. And, you've got 2... I actually think you have 1 good defogger. I don't like Thundurus as a defogger. I actually do like Mega Scizor sometimes if it's more in that defensive role, just because you can rely on Sneasler and Iron Thorns to be offensive. But, your hazard removals, for a team that's not really weak to hazards, I'm fine with it. Yeah, definitely a few things here and there, though, that you might want to point out.
Yeah, so some things, obviously, like Arcanine, like Slowking, and even Thundy, love to run heavy-duty boots, but for the only rock-resisting Sneasler and Crocodile, I would have loved to see more defog or at least Rapid Spin, because Avalugg, not him, and then Thundy running defog feels like a waste of a move.
Yeah.
Of a set. It just, I don't think it's good. Mega Scizor is one of those mons where I like it with defog, but it's also not going to run it every week. So it's kind of like, do I run 3 heavy-duty boots mons, or do I run a defog on a mon that doesn't want to run it? It's like kind of that dilemma, which is very specific. Additionally, I know we're getting more and more teams with ground weakness, but damn. Thundy is fine. It's just not bulky enough to... Like, Arboliva is also good, but I question how much you're going to bring it. I have it in my draft, and I don't know how much I'm going to bring it either.
Yeah, when I evaluated the team, I was mostly looking at the top 8.
Fair enough.
But yeah, the defog thing's an issue. I think you could kind of justify it by just saying, boots exist, just use them, right?
Yeah.
You're going to run Boots Arcanine every time. You're going to run, definitely on Arcanine. Thundy, maybe half the time you run Boots, and then Slowking, maybe another 40 to 50% you're running Boots. Your other mons, like Mega Scizor and Sneasler, do not care about hazards. Neither of them can be hit by Toxic Spikes, and they're not weak to any of them. Thorns, I guess going on at the ground weakness, which is obviously a big thing. Thorns is your 4 times weakness, but it's going to be Terra into something else every time. Obviously, you can't switch into ground moves before the Terra, but it does kind of shore up that weakness with okay, you have 5 ground weaknesses, but 2 of them are your Terramons. So I don't think it's really 5. Maybe it's more like 4.
I mean,
Which is still a problem. It's still not great. It's definitely a downside of this team, but I think you can make it work, especially with if you just look at the top 6, it's not really that bad for ground types.
Yeah,
it's when you add in like 3 at the end.
Yeah.
At the end. Yeah, you're good.
Another thing, obviously, the speed tiers, I know you touched on them earlier, but my problem with the ones in the 90s, specifically Arcanine and Pheasantipity, is I know specifically Pheasantipity, it would love to be more bulky. It doesn't want to run max speed every week, and neither does Arcanine. So it's kind of where I'm like, the speed tiers seem kind of fake, but the fact that 101 is your second highest is also not great. Like, and then touching on heavy duty boots more, like obviously it's an item in the game, obviously because we're talking about it, but it's good on Mons. I don't like it because it forces you to run heavy duty boots instead of another item you like, whether it be leftovers, resist berry. On Thundurus, it could be Scarf for Specs. I just think that ideally you have a better default Rapid Spare. I know you touched on it a bunch. That's just kind of a point I want to make. And
people get differing philosophies on the boots. I've seen people who literally just run 5 Pokemon with boots every week. They just don't even draft defoggers. This is more in Paldex. I think some people subscribe to that philosophy a bit more, so I'm kind of in the middle on it. But yeah, if you had one more thing, go ahead.
Essentially, it's just water weak as well. Water and ground are your 2 biggest weaknesses, in my opinion. And fighting's like hit or miss. And then your Arboliva is the patch to both of those. I feel like you might want to bring Arboliva more than ideal. Like, it's a fine mon, obviously. Oh, and I did want to touch on how I think Sneasler and Mega Scizor are 2 of the best cleaners in the game. Late game, they're huge threats. I would argue 2 of the best, and even if Sneasler is not unburdened, Choice Band sets, Life Orb, I think Sneasler is really good. I just would have loved to see like a random ass Pincurchin for Iron Thorns, for even Fundy that take advantage of it. Obviously Pincurchin went, but
I don't know if I'd want 3 electric types.
Fair enough. I'm not in love with the Iron Thorns pick, but knowing that you Terra it every week, pretty much, I can get behind it a little bit. I don't know. I feel like it's a little early, especially when you drafted Fundy, but...
Yeah, it's questionable, but I think we should move on to the next one.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
This is the electric terrain team.
Yes. Okay, I guess I can take it. So I've seen teams like this before. I did power rankings for another league one time, kind of recently. They had an electric terrain team with 4 electric types on it, and that's not what you want to do. It's kind of like I've seen also with rain teams. So many people I know will draft a rain team and they'll have 6 water types on it, or 5 water types, and 2 of them are just like the same Swift Swim Pokemon with like a different name. And I think for like rain teams, you probably generally want like 3 water types, counting your rain setter. But I think when you see an electric terrain team that isn't weak to ground, it's also one of the only teams that's not weak to ground in general, because ground is such a good typing. I really like not taking the second electric type. Sometimes you want to get like the Alolan Raichu, but this team doesn't need it. You have all 4 of your iron Pokemon, your like 4 drivers, all of them can boost speed. So like none of them are like, having weird stats where they have to like run like suboptimal stats to boost speed. I think Iron Moth might have to go like 220 special attack or something. I think that's the only one that's like, it's a little, you have to run a little bit less special attack, but it's not a big deal. You've got like, of course you rely a bit on Coco, but the reason I put this up high was, if Coco dies, do I still like the team? And the answer was yes. I still like that combination of 4 like Warp Drive Mons, even without Coco. I think they don't really share many weaknesses. They all kind of do different things. They all serve very different roles. Of course, they're all like on the offensive side, except Treads can be a little more defensive. But then when you look at the back half of the team, you've got great defense in Milotic and Porygon. You've got a nice Unburdened Sweeper, so a 5th way to abuse terrain. and Sceptile, and you don't even need to run Unburden. It's still base 120. It is a little weird having Sceptile and Iron Leaf, so maybe that's like your questionable pick, but as a Terra captain, it might be decent. You got a bulky attacker in Mega Heracross, which this team was a little bit lacking in a bulky attacker. And I don't really like Dracloak, or however you say that, but it's there. It's fun.
It's a one. So.
Yeah, it was 1 point. I guess a couple knocks on this team. You know, technically your hazards are bad, quote unquote, because you have 3 setters. But like, Iron Treads is such a good setter. Like, who cares? Like, you're not gonna run Toxic Spikes, Iron Moth. You're not usually running Spikes, Heracross. But like, yes, your setters are not many. You only have Treads, really. Your removers are just Coco and Treads, but both of those are great removers. I think Defog Coco comes very often. Some people disagree with that. But yeah, you're obviously pivoting is amazing. So I really like the team. I don't really have any complaints, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Defog Coco, obviously, because if I remember correctly, Defog does remove.
Yeah, let me say that for real quick. Yeah. I actually did realize that when ranking this team, and that is why I moved it down a little bit, because I was like, it is kind of a non-bow, but if you have to get rid of the hazards, you have to get rid of them. So,
fair enough. I'll just be completely transparent. I did not look at the bottom right for this team and immediately fell in love with it, just even with those flaws. And I've been put on record multiple times saying that I hate gimmick teams, I hate weather, terrain, trick room, be it if it's temporary, I hate it. And yet somehow this is my favorite gimmick team I've ever seen. Bro drafted Tapu Koko, Insane Mon. I am a Coco hater normally, but then he followed up with 4 Paradox Court Drive Mons, all of which that can thrive without electric terrain. Yeah, you have me set. Then you draft Milotic in the 6th round, which I'm not sure how early he's going in other rounds, but feels a little late, to be honest. It's a very good Mon. I love the ways that you can pivot into your Coco into your threats, because obviously Coco gets U-turn and Volt Switch. But my loaded Flip Turn, Porygon 2, Teleport, and then Dracloak U-turn, which I'm not even sure how much you're bringing it, but it gets screens, it gets status, it gets U-turn. It's fine as a 1-pointer. And then I love the Terra Captains. Iron Jugulus, or Jugulus, however you pronounce it, I've heard it both ways. Insane Mon.
Jugulus is incorrect. Just to be clear, Jugulus is a real word. So
thank you. I was saying that. I think I was being gassed.
It's not this isn't a Pokemon word. These are just words in the English dictionary. This should not be a question.
I don't know if it was like satirical or not. That's the problem. So I kind of
I hear it a little bit too much. I hear it a little bit too much for it to be satirical, I think. But anyway, sorry.
Insane Terramon. It was originally like the first speed tour. It was banned. It was Terra banned, and you know it. Apparently, there's discussion in the mod group chat, which I'm not a part of, but Jode is, where it's like, do we allow it to Terra? Do it to not? Ultimately, it's allowed to Terra, and I think that speaks to how good it is as a Terra captain, even outside of electric terrain. It gets insane coverage. Now, Hurricane, least reliable move in the game, but it's strong, and you can run Terra Blast Flying if you have to. And then Sceptile, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it does get Unburdened, which your team was lacking, which I don't think is needed on a terrain team. Let me put that out there. But I think Sceptile, it's a 5-pointer, it's a secondary captain, it's your second to last pick. I think it's completely fine to draft. You just kind of throw them out there and cook, even if there isn't Iron Leaves. And then the speed, I love the speed tiers. I love having a 90 speed tier, and this draft doesn't have it, and my Lodic is not going to be running speed investment very often. So it is a real big fall off. But other than that, I'm a little worried about the fairy weakness, because one of your fairy weaknesses is Iron Moth, which is fine, it's a quad resist, it's just not the bulkiest mon in the world, and it certainly doesn't love to be running bulky sets. And Treads is fine, it's just Spadef weak. And I think that's really the only caveat I had with it. Like, your first 3 mons, which are arguably your best 3, are ground weak, and you're probably bringing 2 of those every week, but you cover it up pretty well with leaves, even Sceptile and Heracross. A Fire week it's like, obviously you're negatively weak to it, but I don't think it's a big deal with Moth, with Milotic, and then your 2 Terra Captains could just Terra Water or something. Like, that's the thing with Terra, is it allows teams to have more holes sometimes and still be good because of the nature of terrestrialization, where you can just change your type, and then all of a sudden a weakness might get turned into a strength. But yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
wish you could improve your hazard game, because I feel like with the Terra Jugulus and even Iron Moth, like leaves, I feel like Sash is honestly a very good bring it to you. So it's kind of something where you just kind of have to be careful with that, because unless I'm mistaken, I don't think there's a priority mod on this team other than like Sucker Punch Dracloak. Aqua Jet Milotic, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Tapu Koko might get quick attack.
Maybe. But that is also a little bit endure Salic Berry bait, so you just gotta be kind of careful with reverse sweeps. But it's a very good team. There's a reason it's ranked this high. Let's move on.
Yeah.
The next team, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I can, I guess, take this. I think the reason I initially rated this so high is I love Garchomp Manaphy on the same team. I've been seeing a lot of that combo recently, especially in leagues that allow Terra in the higher tiers. I've been seeing Garchomp with Terra Manaphy, which is even more insane, but you don't need the Terra for this to be really good. Basically, Garchomp Manaphy gives you 2 of the best setup mons in the game. Garchomp, of course, doesn't have to be set up, but with Scale Shot Swords Dance, it's one of the best setup sweepers that is still good without setting up. You know, some setup sweepers are better than Garchomp, but without setup they're still kind of bad. So they're just like mediocre. Garchomp, once it's set up, is amazing, and before it's set up, it's also amazing. Manaphy kind of does need to set up. Of course, like Manaphy with no setup move is like pretty bad, but you have Tail Globe and Take Heart. Just 2 amazing moves. You can run either set. So, of course, not having Terra does knock it down a bit, but you know, it's still a really good option if you can just remove whatever they have that might be checking you first, and you've got great ways to do that. You also have great setup in the Necrozma with Dragon Dance and Calm Mind. Really hard to break that with Prism Armor. I have a bit of the hiccups right now.
Does it get
got nasty plus Lundy? It probably does. I didn't check. I'm gonna guess that it does, but
that could be very annoying as well. I'm not sure how practical it is, especially
because
it used to be very good with like Clefable and stuff.
Yeah, I want to say it does. I don't know for sure. It gets Moonlight, I think, so you're gonna be able to recover. And then on the more kind of what I like to call the immediate damage side, you've got the Megalop, of course, and the Thundy, who are nice foils to each other with the physical and the special. Of course, Thundy is not like the fastest in the world, but it's still pretty fast. And then defensively, you know, we have all this offense. We've been going through all this stuff, and it's like it's still good defensively. Heatran, Terra Diancie. I think Diancie sucks, but Terra Diancie is great.
I think Terra Diancie is one of the best Terra mons in the game, to be quite honest with you. I've used it, and it might be every single time.
Yeah, considering the stuff that's banned, obviously, of the stuff that's legal, it's definitely one of the best. At least on the defensive side. There's probably some better offensive ones, but
yeah,
on the defensive side, one of the best. Just a really good hazard mon. It gets nice slow pivot with the Baton Pass to get into your setup mons, which I love. You know, I love stuff like Garchomp with the slow pivot. And, you know, then the Heatran, again, you know, you got this defensive mon, kind of like, you know, Necrozma Garchomp can be defensive, but it also does a ton of damage. And yeah, even in your low tiers, Overqwil, Lilligant, you know, they're not coming every time, but they're decent. So really, it's hard to find issues with this team for me. So maybe you can point some out, because you have this a little bit lower, but
yeah, it's
give
maybe
your thought.
The Fog situation, or the hazard removal situation. Because Logan's okay as a low tier, but one, it's not going to want to run defog, and two, it's not going to come that many times a season. And then, so your only removal is Thunderous, which is fine with Prankster defog.
I was going to say, the other Thundy, like earlier, that team that had Thunderous Therian, it's bad there because it's not Prankster, but now that it's Prankster, I think it's okay.
It's okay, it's not ideal, and you definitely don't want to be your primary remover, but fuck it, just run 6 boot spawns, I guess. Like, other than
you
that,
don't even need boots. You're not really weak to hazards.
Yeah, it's just once you get, you're not weak to rocks, but as soon as you hit 1, even or 2 layers of spikes, it starts to become a pain. But I guess that is matchup dependent. If you know spikes are on the other side, you bring the boots. Other than that, I do really like the Overquill pick. I think the Crossbow is a good pick too. I would honestly, like, I know we talked about Garchomp and Megalopite and even Thunderous being the main breakers. I honestly would have loved to see another breaker because of Thunderous almost feeling like it has to be in a more supportive role than you'd like it to be. Other than that, I mean, I'll be real, the ground type matchups kind of suck. Like, sure, Manaphy is fine, but doesn't resist. Thunderous smacked by a rock move, which it's not the world's bulkiest thing. And then Lilligant as well, it's not really coming that much. You're probably looking at Terra Grass Diancie, which is a good set. And then, obviously, Diancie's not that offensive, but it is really easy to forget that it has 100 attack and special attack. And it gets access to Calm Minds. And one of the best rock moves in Diamond Storm, it can get Body Press. I just think it's very good in this team. This team is pretty balanced, honestly. I think keeping me at 5 is the ground weakness, the fairy weakness, because your only resist is a Heatran, which if that gets worn down, then stuff like an Iron Valiant late game, stuff like a Scarf Gardevoir, just any fairy type that wants to spend Moon Blast and can outspeed like a Thunderous, it is just very hard for your team once Heatran gets chipped. And fairies and grounds are so good in draft now that I feel being weak to one of those is like workable. Being weak to both is very concerning.
Yeah, I don't fully disagree, but I do think almost every team ends up being weak to ground just because of ground having so many
ground.
Yeah, it's like ground is super effective against so many things and resisted by like not that many things, and one of the things that's resisted by is bugs. So like not every team's even having that. Yeah. So you'll end up. I mean, if you scroll back through the video, you'll see. You know, when you look at the red and green bars at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see ground is red most often. It's just kind of how it is. So, you know, it's only 3 things weak. Like, it's red because you only have 2 resistances, but it's also only 3 total weaknesses, so it's not the worst.
Yeah, I think what we need to start doing is start counting instead of just immediately assuming that it's bad.
I would still say, because it's a 9-mon team, you do have to. Like, you kind of ratio down 4 to 3, but you know,
I just
take it.
Like
you know, take
I
it
just
as you
don't like it because it feels like every mon and its mother gets Earthquake. So
yes, exactly.
Even if you resist something with like a Heatran, a mon could just have Earthquake and completely decimate, which obviously it's easy to play around, especially in Kanto. It's just a slight concern. I mean, it's top 5 for everything, but let's just go ahead and move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
My number 1.
Yes, go ahead.
So, I don't know how I feel about Sonic Crown. It's definitely, I would argue it's top 3 mons in draft, just because it's so good. Like, I have it in another league. Again, I'm using a bunch of personal bias, but it's 9-1 in 3 games. But at the same time, I've only brought it to 3 out of like 7 games. I think it's gonna be 4 out of 8, but like not as much as you want to. Whereas when you have a Screamtail, a Landorus, this team supports Zama in an amazing way. I'm really, honestly, I couldn't care about the back half for the most part. You look at that top five, I'm fans of all of them. I think they work tremendously together. I think Zama Crown Screamtail without Lando is still going to be most annoying duos of NPBA Season 9. And then you throw Lando in there, you throw the Dunspars in there, and even stuff like Ditto, so you can't set up against this team like that. I think it's just going to be a very hard team to break. And obviously you'd want more breakers. Lando can be a breaker, Meow can be a breaker. Shandy, again, can. Tyrantrum probably needs a +1. I do like the setup mods, though. Obviously, you got Zama. Screamtails has setup. It's not going to be running it. The Dunspars, Tyrantrum. I feel like it's just a very good and balanced team. The hazard, especially removing, is a little less than ideal. Mainly because I don't think, despite Tentacruel filling so many roles, I just don't think it's good enough to be brought to more than half the games. So it leaves you without a bulky water, without ground and poison, and without a rapid spinner, so you're running defog on Lando or Rotom. It's just, that may be biased towards Tentacruel, but other than that, obviously, as we touched on earlier, you look at that ground type list though, woo, that's like every team, so it's not too much of a dog. I will say fighting kind of craps on your team because, sure, Lando's got Intimidate and stuff, and then Screamtail Quadrasists, which is like 2 of the mods you're bringing every week. But if you don't bring one of those mods, it's starting to get a little worrisome. But other than that, I don't have any real gripes with it. I think it's a super solid, balanced team. It's going to be really hard to deal with.
Yeah, pretty much agree with everything you said. The main thing that brought this up for me was that the Screamtail Zamazenta is just like insane. Like, that's just one of the best combos. I mean, Screamtail's a great mon. I used to not like it. I've realized how good it is. But Zamazenta, either crowned or regular, both are great. Pairs well with both of them, and the Lando. Like, the Lando's not as bulky as the Zama, but it's also quite a bulky mon that oftentimes wants to run items besides leftovers, so can be nice there. And it supports to a lesser extent your other like kind of bulky mons like the Dunspars and Rotom and stuff like that. The thing that brought it down for me is the fighting weakness. Of course, like you said, you got the 2 resists in Lando Screamtail, you got the immunity in Chandelure, but what we were saying earlier with some teams is that like your Terra captains can sort of shore up that weakness. The Dunspars and Tyrantrum are 2. I'm not counting Ditto as a fighting weakness, so 2 of your 5 fighting weaknesses. But both of them, especially the Dunspars, wants to be Terra Normal almost every time for the Boom Burst set. Tyrantrum, I honestly think, also wants to be Terra Rock for that Head Smash set pretty much every time, and maybe not every time. Maybe it's 2/3 of the time, or 75% of the time that they run those. But it's like, those are 2 Pokemon that they're offensive Terras. It's like a lot of these teams, the Terra type is like going to be a little more defensive, but if you want to get the max value out of these mons, you're going Terra offensive, just like Stab Terra, whatever you call it. Terra Normal into Dun, Terra Rock and Tyrantrum. So your fighting weakness is going to be pretty bad. It's not the worst, of course. You short up with a good amount of mons, but yeah, that's kind of what brought this down for me a little bit, as well as only having 1 rock resist. I know you only have 2 rock weaknesses in Chandelure and Rotom, who aren't even coming every week, but only Zama being rock resist could be a little annoying against like maybe a Terrakion, maybe a Lycanroc Dusk that could have a strong fighting move for your Zama, as well as what we've been saying. All ground types get rock moves, all rock types get Earthquake. So they're going to hit your Zama too, and you can't run Air Balloon, you can't run Shuckaberry. So, these things I do think are real issues. I do think you're going to have matchups where you just get got because of that. Brought it down to 4, of course. I still think it's a great team, but not quite to number 1 for me.
I do think that's a great point you brought up. I think I was talking about it yesterday, or maybe even the Sinnoh Power Rankings. when we talk about, I feel like this is just a collective Mons thing. When we talk about rock weaknesses, it's always stealth rocks. But there are some rock types, like a Terrakion, like a Lycanroc Dusk, that just, if you have a rock weakness, it's not necessarily an auto lose, but the game becomes so much tougher to build around and to play. And that's just something that's not really focused enough on. Now, I don't think Terrakion gets drafted, if at all, but like
no, it's yeah, it's let me just check because
it's
I'm
14,
curious.
I think.
Yeah, I think they're
Terrakion,
Terrakion. Actually, neither are drafted, so this is going to be less of an issue. But you're still going to find stuff like that. It might not be a rock stab, but it could be like a Terra rock something. It could be like, I can't even tell you what I think of right now, but the fact that you only have one rock resist it's going to come back. Someone might pick up one of those mons in a transaction or something. You never know. It's not too bad. We're nitpicking, but yeah, a couple things there. We'll move on to the best team. So
the second to last team. We're like,
no, this is number one. This is number one.
No, we it's tied.
Are you on? Which team are you on?
Team McGee.
Yeah, that's number one.
What? Am I stupid? Oh no, I'm not stupid. Well, I mean I am. I guess I didn't realize that's the Black team.
Yeah, this is the team. So, yeah, you go back. We have if you average the scores, this is like far and away the highest score between the two of us. This team shouldn't exist, and it was originally Dragapult, Mega Diancie, and quite frankly, if you just change Valiant to Diancie here, I think I keep the team in the same spot. Like, maybe I move it down to 2. I don't even think I do. Like, I think it just stays in the same spot. It also gives you one more point on Mega Diancie, so maybe you put that somewhere else, but whatever. Obviously, that's not the case here. You've got Dragapult, you've got Iron Valiant. Some people would argue those are number 1 or number 2 in Draft League right now. I would not. I would say Valiant's more like 4, 5, 6 range, but that's still great.
They're both top.
Yeah, it's a little bit like our league has Zamazenta and Shaman legal, which not everyone has. And not everyone has Wasted legal, but Blaziken is getting close. With that and like Chen Pao, of course, those are all kind of the ones at the top for me, and I think most people would agree. When you have 2 on the same team, it like feels a little dirty. It feels like when you go up against them, like they're almost cheating. Like, we always call him Cheats McGee because he would like hack someone out in one game, and people started calling him that
Double protect
in the server. But now he somehow convinced, he somehow convinced Closhi to give him the Iron Val, and it doesn't even stop there. It's like, it's not like he has 2 good Pokemon and then like a bunch of random like defensive mons. He has 2 more insane attackers. Like Victini, I was talking earlier about best clicks in the game. Victini V Create, one of the strongest moves in the game. Also a great pivot, like offensive, since it's so bulky. Just run boots. You can pivot around with U-turn, so you're not always just like Scarf V Create. You got the Ogerpon, which is still very strong, and of course you have the Grass one, which means you can run other items, but pretty good damage there, nice speed, nice pivot, spikes, all that. And then you get to the defensive core, and it's still good. Alomomola is obviously amazing for this team because none of those guys can heal. But I think the sneaky pick here, Excadrill, it gets your hazards, it's a nice attacker, it's whatever, it's good. I think the sneaky good pick here is Articuno. I think it's an amazing Terra Cap, and you look at its stats, people discount Articuno. Like, they don't really talk about it as, even like, people don't even talk about it at all because it's never used. But if you look at its stats, it has 90 HP, 100 defense, and 125 Spadef. It has Roost, Defog, and U-Turn. It has, I believe it has Freeze Dry, and then of course you got like Ice Beam, Hurricane, and it probably gets some other random stuff. You can run Toxic, it gets Haze, which is nice. I think it gets Whirlwind, and its typing is horrible. But you just go whatever, Terra Steel, Terra Grass, Terra Water, Terra Fairy, Terra Poison. Like, so many different options. It's going to be hard to prep for because all of those options are good on it. They're going to see it in Terra Preview, but they're not going to know in prep. It's not like one of those mons that always goes to like 1 or 2 types. And once you get rid of that weakness, this Articuno's like a 12-point mon. If Articuno was like a steel type, it'd be like a 13-pointer. So I love everything about this team. I don't really love the Glimmet. Glimmet was 2 points. I don't even know why we made it 2 points, but someone took it, and I don't think it's very good. But I do like Illumise, I like Vigavolt, or Vigavolt, however you say it. And yeah, this is just like from top to bottom.
Yeah, I'll be real. I think I should have made this number one. I think my main gripe with it was just that with Dragapult, you'd love to have more than one great Dark Killer, and even a Ghost Killer for like a Scarf Gengar or something. And Iron Valiant is a top tier Dark Killer. I would just love, like, obviously if you get a chance to get Iron Valiant and Pult, you get it. I would love to see another one other than a Vikavolt. Like, Vikavolt's fine. It just doesn't need to run offensive sets here. So maybe it's not even Bug Buzz some weeks, but then I realized, he's got 5 U-turn mods, a Volt Switch mod, and 2 Wish Passers, so it's fine, doesn't matter. Iron Valiant gets in.
And a flip turn.
So Iron Valiant gets in whenever it wants to. And yeah, I just realized that, so this definitely should have been one. I don't even know if you touched on Ogerpon. It's criminally underrated in my opinion. I mean, all the other 3s are so much more expensive than it's like 2-3 points more expensive for Cornerstone and Wellspring. And I arguably love Ogerpon regular the most in draft because it's able to hold an item. Whereas the others can't, so it's a better Spikes lead than arguably it's obviously a better Spikes there than Hearthstone and Wellspring. But it can also be Banded, it can be Scarf, Expert Belt, Heavy Duty Boots. It can also hold leftovers on like Elite Sheet, Spiky Shield set. It's a super annoying mod to prep for, and I didn't like Victini at first, but then I watched Couch Cat absolutely destroy the playoffs with it, and it started to just make me fear Victini. And so those top 3 being together, they just click buttons and kind of win. And then you have mods like Aloe that just wish and get the hell out of there for other mods. Articuno and Vikavolt, chef's kiss, 2 of the best Terra captains in my opinion. The team, while it is fast with the Dragapult and the speed boosting Iron Valiant, it kind of likes sticky webs. You can run Specs, Iron Valiant, Pult, whatever. It allows Victini to get off more V creates, Excadrill to actually hit stuff. And then obviously that's about it. But you have a spin blocker in Dragapult.
Yeah, I was gonna say the webs are especially good in the team. Yeah, I will say that.
And then obviously the rest of your hazard game, it's like Glimmet and like a random ass Ogerpon and Excadrill. But if Articuno was not Terra, it would not be worth mentioning in a defog conversation. Like obviously it can run heavy duty boots, but I had an Articuno my first Gen 9 league, and I brought it 0 times out of like 10 weeks. Like, it just never found a spot on my team, and I'd worried that's how it would go in this. But with Terra, it's actually a viable defog option and allows Excadrill to run more offensive sets if it pleases. I think this team, despite having many reds down the bottom, I do think no Ghost Resist, which is actually a little scary, no Dark type either. But despite those flaws, I think this team is just the most threatening team in the draft. I think it's very well-rounded, more versatile than you give it credit for, and I think it's pretty obviously the most powerful draft, like immediate power. And I know this is going to sound biased, I promise you it wasn't. I know P. McGee is a fantastic player too, which makes it even scarier. But yeah, do you just want to move on to the list? Buddy, or do you have something more to say?
Yeah. I was just gonna say I haven't checked the whole schedule for the season, but I really hope I don't play this team.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I just
don't.
instantly lose here.
Yeah,
But
I think
yeah,
a
we
lot
can.
of teams
I mean, yeah, we
instantly
can.
lose.
You can go to the last slide, just show everyone these are our rankings and stuff. And again, like, I really don't think any team's bad. Sometimes the lower tier teams we kind of rag on them a little too much just to kind of justify like why is the 13th team 13? They're still really good. It's just like I have to justify why they're worse than these other 12 incredibly powerful teams. So
Kanto is definitely the hardest to rank because everyone is so experienced at draft and so good that I touched on earlier. There's like very little flaws in a bunch of these teams. You know, honestly, most of these teams can get interchanged. It's like they know what they're doing. So it makes, especially ranking the bottom teams, really difficult. But obviously, this is why their power rankings, they don't need that much. Like, the best example I can give off the top of my head, Phonytail, you know, Jode's second, my fifth, was the 15th best team, according to power rankings, in Johto last year. Then Phony was second seed, went to semis, and eventually promoted. Like, power rankings don't mean nothing, it's for fun. Just take everything we said with a grain of salt.
yeah, and I think the Kanto people know that. They don't need to be reminded too much. They're not going to get upset. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's all I got. So if you want to close this out, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's all I got. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. You know, you don't have to, but it doesn't take that long. And I'm producing here Pokemon content all of Season 9. I just want to thank Jode for being here one last time. You know, we kind of got in a little yapping session for, like, I don't know.
2 hours.
I guess 2 hours, yeah. I just like to talk mods. I know he does too. I just want to thank everyone at NPBA just for being a great community, just making my time enjoyable. I love being in that server. But yeah, that's all I got. So yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.